and today we're up to chapter 29, A Terrible Day. Hello friends, welcome back to Storytime at Riverwood Cabin. I'm Rosie Boom and I'm reading to you from my book, Where Lions Roar at Night, the first book in the Barn Chronicles series. And today we're up to chapter 29, A Terrible Day. The cold days began to slip away one by one. Millie began to dream of swimming and canoeing in the river again, and long evenings outside playing volleyball and soccer after dinner. These sunny mornings she loved to take her breakfast out onto the porch and sit on the love swing that Dad had made for Mum. She loved to look at the golden morning sunshine streaming over the pasture, and to watch the paradise ducks circle and land amongst the cattle. A pair of them honked noisily at each other as they waddled across the front paddock. Their undertails and wings gleamed a bright orange chestnut colour, and the white head of the female shone in the bright sunshine. Millie had only just discovered that the one with the white head was the female. She'd always thought it was the drake. The other day, Mum had decided they were going to do a project about New Zealand native birds at school and had printed out a sheet of facts. That was when they discovered which was the drake and which was the duck. Millie smiled to herself as she remembered Dad's reaction. He had always assumed the male was the showier one. She closed her eyes in the sun and listened to the quiet, steady munching of the cattle. They had quite a lot of stock on the land now. The other day, Dad had bought 10 new little calves. They had spent several days running up and down the fence line calling for their mummies. But then they settled down and Millie loved to watch them play together in the mornings and at dusk. Sometimes they let her come near and they sucked her fingers. Dad came outside and sat down with her on the swing. "We're getting a real little flock now, eh, Dad?" she said with a smile. Dad nodded and grinned at the joke. The other week, one of their new neighbours had come over for a cup of tea. Dad was grazing their land for them while they still lived in Auckland. "Chris," Lynn had said, "you know your little cow thingies?" Dad had looked at her, puzzled. "Little cow thingies?" Lynn had nodded and repeated, "Yes, your little cow thingies." Dad had stared at her for a moment as comprehension slowly dawned on him. "Do you mean calves?" "Yes," Lynn had said. "Do you think you could buy one for us next time you buy some? And could you keep it with your flock?" Dad had laughed and laughed over that. He'd had a great time ribbing Lynn about it, and from then on he always referred to his flock of calves as little cow thingies. Now he looked out at his little flock and said, "The little cow thingies are doing well, aren't they, Millie?" "Yep, but Dad, we need chickens. When are you going to make my hen house? I've been waiting forever for it." Dad smiled at her. "I know, but it's not as if I've been twiddling my thumbs. I've had plenty to keep me busy with setting up the barn, clearing the land, and trying to earn a bit of money so you can eat." Millie nodded. She knew he was right, but that didn't stop her wanting it desperately. Dad ruffled her hair. "But maybe I can get started on it one day soon," he said. "Really?" Millie jumped up and gave him a hug. "Today?" Dad laughed. "I didn't say today, actually, but maybe we can at least make a start this afternoon." Millie couldn't concentrate at all on her lessons that morning. But she did write a wonderful story about chickens in her journal. After lunch, she and Kate and Sam headed out to the wood shop and helped Dad choose some wood. It was going to be a grand hen house with gabled roof and even a window. Dad had some old sheep grating from a wool shed, which would make a terrific floor. He had pine weatherboards for the walls and tin for the roof. For the next week, Kate, Sam and Millie helped Dad work on the new hen house whenever he had some spare time. Uncle Dave thought it was quite over the top for a hen house, but Millie was delighted. She couldn't wait to get her chickens. "We just need to put the roof on and the window in," said Dad one day, "and then here come the fresh eggs." "I can't wait." Millie was dying to choose the hens. She would have some leghorns and shavers and maybe some bantams. She swung up into the saddle and adjusted her helmet. Today, she was taking a break from helping Dad and was going to try jumping peony for the first time. A small tariri log lay on Black Rabbit Island, and Mum said it would make a good first jump. "Will you come and watch me?" asked Millie. "Of course," answered Mum. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." After some instructions from Mum, Millie trotted Peony away and then turned her towards the jump. Her ears flicked forward and she broke into a canter. Millie held on tight with her legs and tried to remember what Mum had said. She felt Peony get ready to jump and leaned forward. It was as easy as pie. Millie felt exhilarated when she reined Peony in and patted her neck. "Way to go, Millie," called Mum and Ellie, clapping loudly. "That was great." Just then, they heard a loud shout from Samuel. He was running towards the island, his face white. "Mum, quick! Dad's cut his hand really bad." Millie's stomach lurched inside her. Ellie shot off, running as fast as she could, Mum close behind. Millie swung off Peony's back and sprinted after them. Dad was pacing around outside the barn, clutching a hand towel around his left hand and moaning. "Are you all right, Daddy?" asked Ellie in a shaky voice. He shook his head and kept pacing. "Let me have a look, Chris," said Mum. "It's bad," he groaned, still pacing around. "What a stupid thing to do. Stupid, stupid, stupid." "Stand still and let me have a quick look." Mum lifted the hand towel. Millie watched a look flit across her face, and she knew it was bad. "We've got to get you to the hospital," said Mum in a crisp voice. "Kate and Joe, you're in charge. Millie, run and get the car keys." Millie shot off as Mum led Dad to the Jeep and sat him in the front seat. When she came back with the keys, Dad looked terrible. His face had gone grey and he was sweating. "I'm going to be sick." Kate ran to get a bucket. Dad looked at Mum. He was shaking now. "I'm going to pass out," he whispered. Millie saw his eyes start to roll back. Mum pushed his head between his knees. Millie felt she might be sick too. After a few minutes, Dad lifted his head. "Are you any better?" asked Mum. "Can we go?" Dad nodded, but his tanned face looked strangely pale. Sweat poured off his forehead. Mum started the car, but before she could move off, Dad threw open the door and half fell outside. "I've got to lie down or I'm going to faint," he croaked. He looked so ghastly, lying on the grass, shaking all over. The towel was dripping with blood and Millie felt all woozy. She had never seen Dad hurt before. She felt sick inside and frightened. She couldn't stay there seeing Dad like that. She ran inside the barn and burst into tears. She heard the car start up and head off down the drive. Kate appeared shortly afterwards and put her arm around her. "He's going to be all right," she said gently. "Don't cry." But Millie couldn't stop. It was just so awful. And he was making her hen house when he did it. Mum rang from the hospital about an hour later. Kate answered the phone and talked for a while. Then she called out, "Millie, Mum wants to talk to you." When Millie heard Mum's voice, she felt all shaky again. "Is Daddy all right?" she asked in a small voice. "Don't worry, darling. Daddy's okay. He's had an injection that's made his hand go to sleep, so he's not in pain anymore. The doctor said he's very lucky not to have lost both his fingers." Millie let out a long, shaky sigh. When's he coming home?" Mum hesitated just a moment. "He's not coming home tonight. He's got to stay in hospital for a few days. He's going to need an operation tomorrow to clean the wound and to stitch up his fingers." An operation? Millie's mouth went dry and she couldn't say anything. "Dad wants to see you all tonight, so I'll come home and get his pyjamas and things, and then we can all visit him together." "Right," said Millie when she got off the phone. "Sam and Jake, put some clean clothes on and find your shoes. We're going to the hospital to see Dad." When they walked into the ward, Mum made them rub some cold, smelly gel into their hands. Millie saw Dad's name on the wall outside a room and peeked inside the door. Dad was sitting up in bed with pillows propped behind him. He had his hand resting on 2 pillows, and it was wrapped in so many bandages it looked huge. But Daddy's blue eyes were smiling at her, and he didn't look pale and sweaty anymore. She ran in and gave him a hug. "Hello, Millie Molly," he said cheerfully. "What do you think of my big hand?" She couldn't speak. Jacob had edged into the room and stood looking at Dad. "Hi, Flibberty-Gibbet," said Dad. "You seem very quiet. Don't tell me you've lost some of your Flibberty-Gibbets." Jake grinned at him and ran over to the bed. All the other children crowded into the room, along with Mum carrying Dad's bag. They sat all over the bed, all talking at once. Dad laughed and held up his good hand. "Hang on, one at a time." "I'm the oldest. I go first," said Josiah. "How did you do it?" Dad made an agonised face. "I can't believe I was so careless. I reached for a piece of wood underneath the drop saw while it was still going." He shuddered. "I must have misjudged the distance, and the saw grabbed my hand quicker than Shasta pounces on a mouse. I should have known better." "You should have heard him all the way into the hospital," said Mum. "He kept slapping his leg, or mine, with his good hand and saying, 'How stupid of me, stupid, stupid, stupid.'" She smiled at him, and he kept saying, "I'm so sorry, Rose." He was worried about how long it was going to be before he could work again. "We'll all do the work," piped in Sam and Jake. Dad smiled at them. "Thank you, boys. It might be quite a while before I use a hammer and nail again." "Or a saw," said Joe dryly. Mum flicked open her cell phone. "Have a look at this. I took a few photos when the doctor had the wound all uncovered. His 2 fingers are cut through to the bone and look like they're barely hanging on. I almost couldn't look myself, and I'm a nurse." A few of the children crowded around. Ellie groaned. "Ugh, yuck!" Milly glanced at the photo and then quickly looked away. She felt like crying again. Poor Dad. If only she hadn't badgered him into building her stupid chicken house, then he'd be all right. But Dad saw her sad face and tweaked her nose. "Don't you worry, Milly," he said cheerfully. "I'll get better and we'll finish the hen house eventually. We'll just have to wait a while before we enjoy those fresh eggs."